Hey, all you mamas. I'm here to just talk openly about our horrible 2020 race season that we were supposed to have but got cheated out of due to COVID. I'm sure you guys are feeling like me, where you're just like, hey, maybe you were signed up for some big races. Maybe you were going to do your first Ironman, maybe your first half Ironman, maybe your first triathlon. And I know that everything just got canceled left and right. It seems like there were a few races that did happen, mainly smaller races, or some races that were early in the year before COVID really went rampant. Um, and in Illinois, where I live, that just isn't what happened. I think there might have been a few smaller races that happened in March, and then everything just started getting canceled from there. I personally hired a coach for the first time in February, and I was working with her from the month of February, coming off of a 30-pound weight loss over the off season. I worked so hard to lose that weight and not just lose fat, but also to preserve my muscle and even build some muscle. So I was honestly in the best physical shape that I've ever been in, really, in my adult life. Starting when I worked with the coach in February, and my goals this summer were to just like smash the crap out of all my previous personal bests for everything I've done. So I went big on this summer. I was scheduled to do an Olympic distance triathlon at the beginning of June, and then a half marathon at the third week of June. And then my big A race for the summer was the Muncie 70.3 half Ironman in Muncie, Indiana. That was supposed to be July 11th. So that was like my focus with my coach, was to really be ready. I've done a half Ironman before, but it only one, and it was in 2014. And I was only 1 year postpartum from my third baby. So, I mean, yeah, I had lost some weight and everything, but I wasn't really in like peak fitness. And I just knew I could, if I lost some fat and, really got proper training, I could beat my time there. Um, and so I went from that to being also scheduled for a sprint, like a super sprint triathlon, the second weekend in August. And then I was supposed to run the Chicago Marathon. So that was going to be my first marathon. I've always struggled with running, but I've done quite a few half marathons. And I like doing half marathons as a really it forces me to focus on my running, especially running over distance. And with triathlon, I prefer Olympic distance races. Because I like something a little bit longer than a sprint, and I'm not a sprinty kind of person when it comes to speed. I'm more of an all day kind of person. So I haven't done an Ironman. That's on my list for next year when I turn 40 in 2021. We'll see what next year brings. But so I'm just, like I said, I am just here to talk about what actually happened this year, and what I did for myself that kind of made me feel a little bit better. In February, like I said, we got off to a great start with my coach. We were really working on building a good zone 2 base. And so in March, when all this COVID stuff started happening, my coach asked me, well, what do you want to do? Like, do you want to just keep working? Do you want to stop? What's the plan here? And I said, well, who knows what's going to happen? I don't want to just not prepare myself and then have these races end up happening and then I'm not ready for them. And I mean, what's the worst that could happen? I get really, really fit and then it's for nothing. Well, that sucks, but I mean, what are the alternatives? As many of you probably know, triathlon is more of a lifestyle. Yes, it is awesome to race, but it's so much more than racing. It's what we do. It's how we live. And so the training is just part of our life. And for me, it's anxiety and stress relief, and just something to keep me just focused. I eat better when I'm training, and especially with COVID, I needed a break away from my kids. Usually I get a break when I go to the gym, or I get up early before my husband goes to work and do my training then. But, if I weren't working out, I wouldn't be getting those breaks that I needed and having that outlet for my stress relief. So we just kept on doing the build for Muncie just in case it happened. And, she threw a lot of stuff at me to do. I was continuing on with strength training and core training in addition to, all the swimming and biking and running that I had to do. So when I got up to my peak, I was working about, I think, 14, 15 hours a week for probably close to a month. And even up until that, my build for the few months before that was anywhere from like at least 11, 12 hours a week. Even from February, we were looking at like 9, 10 hours a week. So this whole year, tons of time was dedicated to building. And, my half marathon and the Olympic distance got canceled in June, and that wasn't really a surprise to me, but those weren't really like A races for me. So I wasn't really devastated. I was just like, well, it is what it is. As long as Muncie's still going to happen, I was crossing my fingers, And we got to July, and Muncie was still on the calendar. And it was, the first week of July, and I was following their Facebook group, and it looked like everything was good to go and it was going to happen. And I was getting really excited. I got my bike tuned up and I was all dialed in and everything. And then unfortunately, just like 9 days before the race, 8 or 9 days before the race, I got an email saying that they were canceling it. And I was embarrassed that I cried. Like, I literally was about to go out on a bike ride when I found out. And it was supposed to be my last long ride before the race. It was like a 3-hour ride. So this was like, 9 days before the race, because we were doing kind of a short taper. And I was in my car getting ready to go out on my bike. And I was about to open the door and go grab my bike and go, because I ride, out on the country roads. I have to drive to the country roads because I live in the city. And I saw that I had a email notification, and I was like, what's that? So I stupidly clicked on it, and it said that Muncie was canceled. And at first I didn't cry. I was like almost in shock and disbelief. I was like, no, what are you going to do? You're going to still ride. You're just going to go ride. You're just going to ride. So I get out and I grab my bike and I start riding, and I was about an hour into my ride, and I couldn't hold it in anymore. I was just like, like ugly crying on my bike, like riding in the country roads. There were like people working on their lawn, like, mowing their lawn, like doing yard work and stuff. And I'm like riding by, I'm like, like ugly crying. And I'm like, oh my gosh, you're such an idiot. You're crying over a race that didn't happen. And these people are going to be like, what is wrong with this lady? Why is she crying while she's riding her bike? And I ended up begging it. I was like, I'm done. Like, I'm not going to finish. So I think I got about 2 hours and 15 minutes in. And then I went back to the car, and I was just like sobbing in my car. And when I got home, my husband knew what happened because my daughter heard about it through the grapevine, and then she told him before I could tell him. So I came in the door and he already knew about it, and he wanted to talk about it. And I was like, I can't talk about this right now. And I literally, like a big baby, went and got in the shower, rinsed off, and went into my room and like locked myself in my room and crawled under my covers and like cried like a little teenage girl who just had a breakup. It was awful. But I worked so hard for that. And I mean, I guess it's justified, but I feel embarrassed as a grown woman that I reacted that way. It's not like I didn't make Olympic trials or something like that, but it was a huge deal to me. So it was really awesome that I have some really good friends who, one in particular, you know who you are, who lives on a lake. And she said, you know what, you work so hard for this. We're going to do a triathlon. We're going to do a half Iron distance triathlon, and you're going to do it. You're going to give it all you got, and you're going to do it so you can use your fitness that you built. And, so she invited me out to the lake on a Saturday morning real early, and I was the only one. I went out there, I used my GPS on my Garmin to swim halfway, and then turned around. I kind of kept an eye on my yards, and then turned around and came back. And then we had transition set up in the driveway. So I jumped out of the water, and I had my watch going, and I had it on multi-sport. So it timed my transition, ran around the house, grabbed my bike. I had mapped out a 56-mile bike ride from the house and rode my 56 miles all by myself. There were no people supporting me. I had all my fuel and everything on the bike, so I was carrying a lot of weight. not very aerodynamic. I had to stop at a lot of crossroads, so that affected my bike split, but still, I got my 56 miles. Actually, got a little more than 56 in because I like miscalculated a little bit, but only slightly. And then we had T2 set up in the driveway. And so I went ahead and dropped my bike off there with her, grabbed my running shoes, went out on my run, and I had no idea, but she had gone around the neighborhood and wrote in like sidewalk chalk little messages to me, keep going, you know. We did a 4-loop run, and I did know that she was going to sit and have like an aid station for me. So I kept a bottle on me, on my fuel belt, that I would refill every time I came by her. She would give me a gel and I would refill my bottle. But I didn't know that she had invited some other people from our swim team to come out. So it ended up being that several other friends of mine came out, and they were holding signs and like cheering me on. And some of them even ran with me towards the end just to kind of keep me going. And it was so much fun. It was just awesome. Even 10 miles in, when it started storming, like pouring rain, horrible wind, complete cloud, like darkness over me, and my shoes were soaking wet, but I kept on going. And the last couple miles, and my shoes were soaking wet, my knees were starting to hurt because my feet were so heavy. And then finally, about a mile before the end, it kind of started clearing up a little bit, and I got through the finish line just as the sun was coming back out, and it was an awesome finish. And she drew a little finish line on the ground and everything. And one of my friends, my other friend who came, was even so sweet that she made me this medal. It's probably backwards in my camera, but it's 70.3 July 11th, 2020. So she made it for me, little wooden medal with twine, because it's like kind of country. It's a little rural area. So that was really cool that she surprised me with making this medal for me. And it was just a great experience. And I did end up, even though I didn't have the push of a real race and I wasn't really competing against anyone, and with the storm and going over on my distance and everything, even still, all those things considered, I still took 23 minutes off my previous best time from my 70.3. So my finish time was 6 hours and 29 minutes, and that includes transitions. So I was pretty happy with that. My original goal for like the real race was 6:15, but again, this wasn't like a real legit race. So I was pretty dang happy with it being, 6:29 and still smashing 23 minutes off my previous time. So I went on from that and did an Olympic virtual event, which I took time off of as well. I ran a half marathon as a virtual event. So I got medals for both of those. The half marathon virtual event I did, I was 1 minute slower than my previous personal best, but weather conditions were this was like in the 70s when I ran it. And my personal best time was also from, I think, 5 years ago. And that was done like an ideal weather day, like mid 40s, mid upper 40s. Obviously I wasn't carrying fluids and stuff on that day because I was, had aid stations and other runners to motivate me. This was me carrying literally like 2 liters of fluid on my body, all my gels, and going out by myself when it was way warmer. So 1 minute slower to me was like huge. It's great. So I was raising money for Ronald McDonald House Charities for the Chicago Marathon. And I had raised over $800. And this cause was very near and dear to my heart because I had a preemie 2 years ago. And she was actually a micro preemie. She was born at 26 weeks and 2 days. And if you know what a marathon is, 26.2 miles. When she was born at 26 weeks and 2 days, I took that as an omen that I would run a marathon for her one day. And so when she was really sick, after she was a couple weeks old, she got really, really sick in the NICU and she was fighting for her life. We almost lost her. And I promised her, if you just fight and you make it, I will run a marathon in your honor. Come on, you gotta make it. You gotta make it. And here we are 2 years later and she's here. And so right around her second birthday, I I made that commitment and I signed up for Chicago and I signed up to raise money for Ronald McDonald. They did so much for us during her time in the NICU, and they're just such an amazing charity. So I signed up for Chicago, signed up to raise money for Ronald McDonald, raised, like I said, like $800 or whatever. And then, of course, Chicago gets canceled. So I'm like, well, what do? You know, I mean, are people going to understand, oh, they donated, but I'm not going to run it now? Well, yeah, they're not going to get mad. But I promised that little girl a marathon. And when I solicited these donations, I said, I'm running a marathon. So you're sponsoring me to run a marathon. So to me, I thought, you know what? I need to hold fast to my commitment and still run a marathon. So Chicago gave us the option, if we fulfilled 100% of our commitment, that we could defer our entry to a different year. But I was having a hard time like raising the rest of the money, because I had gotten, like I said, a little over 800 and my total commitment was 1750. So I was only like halfway, not even. And so I was like, you know what, with COVID, nobody wants to donate. Nobody has money. So I just am going to do the best I can and forget the deferral. Like, I can run Chicago some other time and like sign up again and raise money again if I really want to. But for right now, I'm just going to do the best I can, and I'm going to pick a date and I'm going to go out and I'm going to run a marathon. Well, again, I had never run a marathon before. I knew it was going to be hard, but my coach was like, hey, you just did a half Ironman and you raced for 6 hours and 29 minutes. That means that you trained your body to be able to exercise for 6 hours and 29 minutes. So even if you're not like legit training for a marathon, you could probably do it. I mean, yeah, like the pounding of your feet for that whole 26.2 miles is different than swim, bike, run for the same duration of time, or maybe a little less. But she convinced me that I could do it. So I didn't want to wait until October when Chicago was supposed to happen. I wanted to just go ahead and do it sooner, just get it done and call it a season and be like, hey, let's go to off-season mode now. So I threw some long runs in there. I did a 16 miler, which was a lot of walking for the last couple miles. And then I had done an almost 17 miler. That was a nice, easy, like 12.5 minute mile pace. And that was only 2 weeks ago. And I was like, you know what? I'm running this marathon. I'm going to do it. I just want to get it over with. So adding another 9 miles to that all at once is not a good idea. And I knew that it wasn't a good idea, but I was like, you know what? Whatever, I'm crazy. I just want to do it. I want to get it over with. So I decided I was going to do it on Labor Day, which was 2 days ago. And I'm like, I'll call it the Labor Day 42K, because 42K is pretty close to exactly 26.2 miles. So I actually went out on Labor Day and I carried a ton of stuff with me, like a gallon of water. I had a hydration backpack, which I'm gonna do a review on my hydration backpack. I've got some things to say about it. So if anybody wants to know about it, it's an off-brand. I'm gonna make another video, so keep an eye out for that if you're interested in a hydration backpack review. It's a cheap hydration backpack, but I've got some good and bad things to say about it. And then I also had to have a fuel belt because the hydration backpack wasn't enough for all the liquid I needed, because I was doing an out and back, so I couldn't refill at all. So I had literally a total of a gallon of fluids, some gels, some blocks, an Uncrustable. I had all this stuff on my body, my phone, my keys, my earbuds. Like, I had all this stuff I was carrying, probably at least probably around 11 pounds of extra weight in just the fuel belt and the fuel backpack. And I went out and it was quite a bit more humid and warmer than I thought it was going to be. By the time I was done, it was in the upper 70s. So my original goal for Chicago was 5 hours, but I made an adjusted goal because this wasn't a real race and I didn't really do legit training. And I knew it was going to be hard for me to be carrying all that stuff. So I figured, okay, if I can just do it in 6 hours, I'm not going to treat it like a real race, but my rough goal was like, hey, 6 hours sounds good to me. So I went out and, I got through the first 14, 15 miles. I was pretty comfortable. I was more than halfway. I had turned around and I was on my way back. And I don't know what happened. Mile 16, 17, 18 were just like, ugh. And then I got to 19 and I walked like half the mile. It was just like, I don't know, dehydration. I had base salt with me, so I was taking base salts and drinking the whole time, but I was like, maybe I need to take some more. I don't know what is going on, if I underfueled or whatever. I've never done a marathon before. And again, I didn't like do proper training either, so I was struggling. Like mile 19 was like a 17-minute mile. And you know, it's starting to really hurt, but I think the salt helped. In mile 20, 21, I kind of picked it up a little bit more, got my pace back down a little bit. But I fought really hard to finish. Like the last couple miles, it was like I was telling myself, okay, you're gonna gala walk, like 2 minutes of running, jogging, like shuffling. It was pathetic. And then a little bit of walking, and then, okay, you're only gonna walk 20 seconds, and then you're gonna jog again or whatever. But I got it. You know, I kept an eye on my watch, and I got all the way to my 26.2, and it took me 5 hours and 58 minutes. And I used my friend's cool idea about making a medal, and beforehand I had made myself a medal. So again, this is going to be backwards, but this is my little medal I made for myself. You can see it's got a ribbon. Again, it's a Labor Day, so we got some patriotic ribbon going on here. Labor Day 42K marathon. That's the little medal I made. It's metal. It's literally supposed to be a Christmas ornament, like a DIY Christmas ornament. And these are like scrapbook stickers. So I made it, but I literally put this on and took a picture with it. Like, hey, I won, first place. And I had a sign on the back of my hydration pack I had pinned on it that said, I'm doing my first marathon right now to raise money for Ronald McDonald House charities. So that was kind of cool because I got some people on the trail that were like, yeah, go, you go, lady. It was really hard. It was one of the hardest things I've ever done. You guys, you marathoners are amazing. I just have to say, like, yeah, if I trained properly and it weren't, 75 degrees and I didn't have to carry all that extra weight, it probably wouldn't have been quite so bad, but it was still pretty dang rough. And now it's really making me go, oh my gosh, if that was that hard, how am I going to do a full marathon or a full Ironman? But I'm pretty crazy. And when I commit to something, I commit with like full force. And I am full force committed to doing an Ironman for my 40th birthday. So I'm going to have to just figure out how to get through that and expect a lot of pain. But that's my race season. I still have one more thing I'm going to do, which is just a fun event. And that's a really long one-way 55-mile bike ride that's on a trail. So that's going to be it. That's next week, and then I'll be all done in off-season mode. I would love to hear about your races, fake races or real races you got to do. Leave them in the comments. If you like this video, be sure to like it, share it with your friends, subscribe to my channel. Thanks for watching. See you next time.